President Obama's recent interview with the New York Times included a surprising exchange about the Keystone XL pipeline. Specifically, the TransCanada Corporation's claim that its pipeline would create 20,000 new jobs. Well, the president took issue with that number and pointed to, quote, realistic estimates that have the job creation figure much lower. But isn't quibbling over numbers missing the point? Joining me now for tonight's Q&A is Dan Kish. He is Senior Vice President for Policy at the Institute for Energy Research. Dan, welcome.
Thanks, Amy.
So in this New York Times interview, President Obama touched on the topic he was asked about Keystone Pipeline and its potential for job creation. And this is what he had to say to these reporters. He said, quote, they might like to see 2,000 jobs initially, but that's a blip relative to the need. He called 2,000 jobs a blip. Meanwhile, his own State Department has said that the Keystone Pipeline could create 42,000 jobs, not just including the welders and the electricians and the workers on the pipeline, but all of the economy that's created around it. Who's right, and why such a vast discrepancy between the president and his own State Department?
A great question, Amy. The president is wrong, but the president's been wrong on every one of his energy policies from the get-go, and he continues to go down this road. 2,000 jobs would be nothing to turn up your nose at, especially since we've got tens of millions of Americans out of work, and these are wonderful jobs. We're talking about, if it's 2,000 jobs, it would be $3.5 million per job because it's a $7+ billion project. So I guess I'd have to go with either the State Department or the National Association of Manufacturers, which responded today by saying that the total number of jobs between indirect and direct are 138,000 jobs. And cheaper energy, which is what the Keystone Pipeline would be bringing us, will create jobs right here at home, both building the pipeline as well as people being able to afford energy, all these things. And the president just seems to, it always escapes him about the dramatic power and strength of cheaper energy in this country and what it could mean for us.
Right. Well, I want to show our viewers at home a map of the Keystone Pipeline starting in Alberta, Canada, winding its way through the midsection of the country, finally ending up in Houston, where all of that oil could be shipped out and sold on the world market as well as the domestic market. The president said that he is for infrastructure. And as you have pointed out, this is a $7 billion plus project. TransCanada points out that this would be the largest proposed infrastructure project in America. Why is the president opposed to this particular kind of infrastructure?
Again, it's an energy infrastructure project, which doesn't require any government intervention, and he tends to like to pick winners and losers, generally losers when it comes to the cylinders of the world, that sort of thing. But this doesn't require any money from the government. It doesn't. All it requires is a thumbs up and a go get 'em and put some people to work. That's why unions are behind this. They support it because of all the jobs. That's why consumers ought to be for it, because it will end up with there being more oil going to our refineries. And the other thing about this is it's close to 1 million barrels a day of oil, which is a lot of oil that would be created here in North America instead of being brought in from places that don't like us.
Right, and it's worth pointing out that if this project gets blocked from crossing, the international border through the United States, the Canadians, they plan to build it out to the Pacific coast and just ship it off to China. I want to show our viewers at home, there was a huge protest in Washington, D.C. this weekend over this Keystone Pipeline project. 55 protesters were arrested. This is a video from liveleaks.com. Dan, how has this become so partisan? You mentioned that unions support this. Well, Steny Hoyer, he's the minority whip in the House, a Democrat from Maryland. He supports it. Bob Casey, senator from Pennsylvania, he supports it. Bob Schweitzer, a Democrat, the Democratic governor from Montana, he supports this. Why did the president take out after Republicans so explicitly and exclusively in this New York Times piece, and why has this become such partisan football?
Yeah, that too is a great question, Amy. Because in Washington, it's the blame game. I mean, the truth of the matter is, it does enjoy bipartisan support in both the Senate and the House, and overwhelming support from the American public. But when something goes wrong or people aren't happy with your position, you basically lash out at the other party in Washington. That's what the president and others who have been blaming it on Congress or something. He's the one that has to make the decision. So there's a blame game going on here. The president's trying to tap the finger on someone else for a position that he could solve tomorrow. He could come out and say,
right,
the pipeline should be built.
right.
And
Well,
we could put thousands of Americans to work.
well, Dan, the clock is ticking. This has been languishing since 2009. Hopefully that the opportunity won't pass us by. We thank you for joining us tonight and sharing your insights.
Thanks, Amy.
Counterterrorism officials have a new concern tonight: Western fighters flocking to Syria. Is the war against Assad likely to evolve into global jihad? Buck Sexton tackles that question after the break.